Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you felt safe in their arms, only to hear them whisper another person's name while holding you? That moment shattered me. I thought I knew her, but that night I realized I didn't know her at all. I used to believe our love was unshakable. We had built years together, birthdays, road trips, late-night talks that stretched until sunrise. She wasn't just my girlfriend, she was my safe place. When life outside felt heavy, I knew I could always come home to her warmth. That's why the night it happened felt so surreal. We had gone out for dinner, nothing fancy, just the little diner down the street where we always joked about the cook putting too much salt in the fries. On the surface, everything seemed normal. She laughed at my dumb jokes, reached across the table to hold my hand, and kissed me on the cheek like she always did. But if I'm honest, looking back now, there were signs. Little things that didn't register at the time. She had been on her phone more often, smiling at messages she didn't share with me. Sometimes she'd disappear into another room just to take a call. I convinced myself it was work, or maybe her best friend venting about something. I didn't want to be the insecure boyfriend. That night, though, after dinner we went back home. We curled up together on the couch, the soft glow of the lamp painting her face in gold. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the woman I'll spend my life with. I held her tighter, kissed her forehead, and whispered how much I loved her. She didn't say it back immediately, which struck me as odd. She just squeezed my arm and smiled faintly, like her mind was somewhere else. Still, I ignored it, because when you love someone, you don't want to see the cracks. You just hold on tighter, hoping it will all feel the same, and then it happened. We moved to the bedroom not long after. It was supposed to be a normal night, nothing unusual. The kind of night you take for granted when you're in a long-term relationship. I remember the way she leaned into me, how her hands traced my shoulders like they always did. For a moment it felt right, familiar, safe, but then, in the middle of it all, I heard something that froze me. At first, I thought I misheard. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it wasn't my name. She said someone else's. It was like my brain couldn't process it immediately. The sound rang in my ears, repeating itself, echoing inside my chest. My body went cold even as I was holding her close. I pulled back slightly, searching her face. Her eyes were closed, lips parted, and she whispered it again. His name, not mine, his. I didn't even know how to react. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to tear through my chest. For a second, I thought about pretending I didn't hear it. Maybe it was a slip. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew. Because when she opened her eyes just for a moment, there was a flicker of guilt before she quickly leaned forward to kiss me again, like she was trying to erase what had just happened. And that was the exact second. Everything inside me began to crumble. I wanted to stop right there, to pull away, to demand answers, to scream, "Who is he?" But I couldn't. My body froze like I was trapped between love and betrayal, denial and rage. She kept moving closer, kissing me, holding me like nothing had happened. And for a moment, I almost gave in, almost convinced myself I'd imagined it, that maybe she hadn't said what I thought I heard. But the sound of that name kept replaying in my head, over and over, like a cruel echo that wouldn't stop. I felt my chest tighten, my throat burned. My hands, instead of holding her out of passion, were trembling with confusion. Who was he? How long had he been there between us? Without me even noticing, I tried to mask my reaction, but inside I was unraveling. My heart was breaking in silence, even as she rested her head against my shoulder like everything was fine. I wanted to believe it was just a mistake, a slip of the tongue, but people don't accidentally whisper another man's name in moments like that. That's not an accident, that's desire, and in that instant I realized I wasn't just fighting for her love anymore. I was fighting against a ghost, a shadow of someone who clearly had a piece of her I didn't. I lay there beside her afterward, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing so fast I could barely breathe. She turned on her side, curled into me like she always did, as if nothing was wrong. But to me, everything was different now. Her breathing slowed, steady, like she was drifting into sleep. Meanwhile, I was wide awake, trapped in my own thoughts. That name, it wasn't random. It had weight. It carried history. The worst part, I knew the name. It wasn't some stranger, some unfamiliar word. It belonged to someone I'd seen before. A friend. No, not exactly a friend. More like an acquaintance who had been around recently. Someone who'd lingered a little too long in conversations with her. Someone whose eyes seemed to follow her when he thought I wasn't looking. And now, lying in the dark with her pressed against me, I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't just in her thoughts. He had been in her heart all along. I wanted to shake her awake, demand the truth, force her to explain why she would do this to me. But fear held me back, fear of the answer, fear that if she admitted it, everything we'd built would collapse in one instant. So instead, I stayed silent, my arm around her, my chest burning, my eyes fixed on the darkness. Knowing that the woman I loved had already given part of herself away to another man. The next morning, I watched her move around the kitchen like nothing had happened. She hummed softly while making coffee, smiled at me when our eyes met, even kissed my cheek as if the night before had been perfectly normal. But inside me, nothing felt normal anymore. That name still echoed in my mind, and I couldn't ignore it. I studied her every gesture, how she picked up her phone, how quickly she turned the screen away when a notification buzzed, how she laughed a little too hard at something she was scrolling through. I told myself I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't imagining things, because once you hear the truth slip out of someone's lips, even by accident, you can't unhear it. So I started looking closer. I noticed the way she carried her phone everywhere now, even to the bathroom. The way she lingered on messages just a second too long before locking the screen. The way her smile sometimes appeared when she thought I wasn't paying attention. And then there were the nights she suddenly seemed too tired. The excuses about long days, headaches, early mornings. They stacked up one by one, like little bricks in a wall she was building between us. But the memory of her whisper, that single moment of betrayal, gave those excuses a shape, a meaning, because now I knew who the wall was hiding. And I couldn't stop myself from wondering, if she whispered his name while with me, what did she say when she was actually with him? A few days later, I decided I couldn't just sit in silence anymore. If she was hiding something, I had to know. Not by confronting her yet, I wasn't ready for that, but by watching closer, paying attention to the things she thought I wouldn't notice. That evening, she was in the shower and her phone lit up on the nightstand. Normally, I never would have touched it. We trusted each other, or at least we used to. But that night, my hand moved before my conscience could stop me. One message, just one. That's all it took to crack the shell of denial I'd been clinging to. It wasn't explicit. It wasn't even romantic. Just a short text, last night. I can't stop thinking about it. Followed by a heart. My stomach dropped. My hands trembled. It wasn't even signed, but I didn't need a name. I already knew whose name she had whispered in the dark. I placed the phone back exactly where I found it, my pulse pounding in my ears. The shower still ran in the bathroom, her voice humming faintly under the water. And I stood there staring at that phone, realizing the truth I had been trying so hard to avoid. It wasn't just in my head. It wasn't just a slip of the tongue. She was thinking of him. She had been with him. And now, every time she touched me, every kiss, every smile, it all felt poisoned. The rest of that night, I couldn't even look at her the same way. When she came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, smiling at me like nothing had happened, I felt my jaw tighten so hard it hurt. She leaned over to kiss me, and I forced myself not to flinch. She had no idea I knew, and that thought made my blood boil even more. She was still playing her part, still acting like the devoted partner, while secretly giving herself to someone else. I lay awake long after she drifted off, staring into the darkness again, but this time I wasn't just broken. I was angry. I wanted to scream at her, shake her awake, throw the truth in her face and watch her crumble under the weight of it. But another voice in my head held me back, a colder, sharper voice. Don't confront her yet. Not until you have everything. Not until she can't lie her way out of it. So I started planning, watching more closely, waiting for patterns, keeping track of excuses, late returns, sudden errands. Every smile that wasn't meant for me burned itself into my memory, because when the time came to face her, I didn't just want suspicion. I wanted undeniable proof, and deep down, I think I already knew the truth I was going to uncover would hurt more than I was ready for. It didn't take long for the cracks to widen. One evening, she told me she was going to meet a friend for dinner. A girls' night out, she called it, kissing me quickly before rushing out the door in a dress she hadn't worn in months. I nodded, pretended to buy the story, but inside my gut screamed the truth, so I waited. And this time, I didn't just wait blindly. I kept my eyes on her phone, on the little digital trail she thought she was covering so well. She'd forgotten to turn off her email notifications, and as I sat there, pretending to watch TV, her phone buzzed on the table. An itinerary popped up, a hotel reservation. My chest went tight, the air leaving my lungs in a single, crushing wave. There was no girls' night. There was no friend. She had reserved a room under her name, just one town over. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen, my mind blank, my heart pounding so loud it felt like the walls might hear it. This wasn't just late night texts or whispers in the dark. This was real. Physical, flesh and blood betrayal. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. I wanted to storm into that hotel right then and there and catch them in the act. But I sat frozen, my knuckles white, because part of me still couldn't believe it. She had walked out of our home, straight into his arms, and when she came back, she'd look me in the eye and smile like nothing had happened. That night, I couldn't sit still. Every second that passed felt like another knife twisting deeper into my chest. She was out there, in some dimly lit hotel room with him, whispering his name the way she had with me. I paced the living room, my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. My mind ran wild with images I didn't want to see but couldn't stop imagining. Finally, I grabbed my keys. I couldn't take it anymore. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, it would drive me insane. The hotel was only 20 minutes away. Each mile felt heavier than the last, my heart pounding with a sickening mix of fear and rage. I pulled into the parking lot, scanning every car, every shadow, wondering if one of them belonged to him. And then, through the glass doors of the lobby, I saw her. She wasn't alone. She stood there, laughing softly, her hand brushing his arm like it belonged there. I froze in my seat, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone I knew. Someone I had trusted. My world tilted, the betrayal doubling in weight. Not only had she broken us, she had dragged someone from our circle into it. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles burned. Part of me wanted to storm inside, to tear the illusion apart and watch their faces shatter when they saw me. But another part of me, colder, quieter, wanted to wait. To let them think they were safe, because the look on her face, that look of pure comfort with him, told me this wasn't the first time, and if I exploded too soon, she'd just bury the truth deeper. I drove home in silence. My body was there, but my mind, it was stuck in that hotel lobby, replaying the way her eyes lit up when she looked at him. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't even hesitation. It was comfort, and that hurt worse than anything. By the time she walked through our front door, I was sitting at the kitchen table, the lights dimmed, my hands clasped so tightly they felt numb. She stepped in with that fake, casual smile, dropping her purse by the door like nothing had happened. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice soft, almost rehearsed. "You're still up?" I studied her face in the glow of the lamp. She smelled faintly of perfume, not the kind she usually wore around me, something heavier, something I'd never bought her. "Yeah," I said quietly. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was lower, colder, stripped of warmth. Couldn't sleep. She moved closer, leaned down to kiss me, but I didn't lift my head. I didn't even move. Just let her lips brush the air above me. She hesitated, pulling back slightly, her eyes searching mine. "What's wrong?" she asked. I let the silence stretch. My heart was hammering in my chest, but on the outside I looked calm. Too calm. "Nothing," I finally said, "just thinking." And in that moment I saw a flicker of something in her expression. Not guilt, not fear, but calculation. Like she was trying to measure how much I knew, how close I was to the truth. It was that look that told me everything. She was hiding him in plain sight and daring me to find out. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms, just watching her. She shifted uncomfortably, like the air between us had thickened. "So," I said casually, forcing my tone flat, "long day." She nodded too quickly. "Yeah, exhausting. Meetings ran late, and then traffic was a nightmare." Her words came smooth, practiced, but her eyes didn't meet mine. She kept fussing with her hair, avoiding my stare. I tilted my head. "Strange. I drove past your office earlier. Looked pretty empty for a late meeting." Her hand froze mid-motion, just for a second, before she laughed softly. "You must have been there after we left. I told you it ran late." That pause, that nervous laugh, it told me more than her words ever could. I tapped my finger on the table slowly, deliberately, and the perfume, new brand, "I don't remember buying you that one." Her cheeks flushed. She glanced down at her hands. "Oh, coworker let me try hers, thought it smelled nice." Another lie. Every sentence she spoke was another thread unraveling. She thought she was patching holes, but she didn't realize I'd already seen the fabric tearing apart. I forced a small smile, leaning closer. "You know what's funny? I swear I heard you talking in your sleep last night. You said a name." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. For the first time, she looked scared. What name?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I just let the silence eat her alive, because in that silence, her guilt screamed louder than words ever could. Her lips trembled as she waited for me to answer, but I didn't. I let her stew in that silence, the kind of silence that claws at your chest, that makes your own heartbeat sound like a siren. She finally broke. "Why? You must have misheard. I don't talk in my sleep." But she did. I knew she did, and that denial wasn't for me. It was for her. I leaned back, eyes locked on hers, funny, because I could have sworn I heard a man's name clear as day. Her breathing picked up, shallow and uneven. She opened her mouth, then shut it, like she couldn't decide which lie to settle on. And that's when I realized. She wasn't just guilty. She was afraid. Not of me, but of the truth spilling out in a way she couldn't control. I stood slowly, pushing my chair back, and stepped closer. She flinched, not because she thought I'd hurt her, but because she knew I'd already seen too much. I don't care about perfume, or late meetings, or traffic jams, I said, my voice low, steady. What I care about is honesty, and right now I don't see it anywhere in you. Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't fall. She wasn't crying out of regret. She was crying because the walls she built were collapsing. I could have ended it right there, demanded the truth, ripped her mask off, but I didn't, because something darker inside me wanted her to unravel slowly, to feel the same helplessness she'd thrown me into. So I whispered, leaning close enough that my words brushed her ear, "Sleep tight tonight, and try not to say his name again." Her body stiffened, her breath caught, and for the first time she realized this wasn't a game anymore. That night, she curled up on the edge of the bed, her back to me. I could hear her breathing, uneven, like every inhale carried the weight of her lies. I stared at the ceiling, my mind running in circles. I didn't need her confession. I needed proof, something undeniable, something she couldn't wriggle out of with rehearsed excuses. When her breath finally deepened into what sounded like sleep, I slipped out of bed. Quiet, careful, my hands didn't shake, but my chest was tight, like my body knew I was crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Her phone was on the nightstand, just inches from her hand. I picked it up, moving slowly, praying she wouldn't stir. My thumb hovered over the screen, locked, but I knew her patterns, birthdays, anniversaries, even the stupid dog's name once, and on the third try, the screen blinked open. My heart pounded as I scrolled. Messages, calls, photos, I expected to see it all laid bare, but she was smarter than that. Everything was wiped clean, too clean. That's when I realized she had a second phone, a shadow life tucked away somewhere I hadn't found yet. I set the phone back exactly where it was, my movements precise, careful not to disturb a thing. Sliding under the covers again, I stared at her. She looked peaceful, like a child pretending to be asleep during a storm. And in that moment, my love for her twisted into something unrecognizable, because the woman I thought I knew wasn't lying next to me. She was out there, hiding behind another number, another name, another man. And I was going to find every piece of it. The next morning, she acted normal, too normal. She hummed while making coffee, kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong, and left for work with a smile that almost fooled me. Almost, but the mask slipped when I glanced at her bag. She never carried it to the bathroom before, and yet, last night, right before bed, I remembered seeing her clutch it, slipping it under the dresser like a guilty reflex. The thought gnawed at me all day. When she left for work again, I didn't waste a second. I pulled her dresser away from the wall, my pulse racing in my ears, and there it was, a cheap black phone, no case. No charm, just plain, cold, and buzzing with secrets. My hands shook as I held it, pressing the button. No password, no lock screen, almost as if she wanted quick access. And then the messages lit up. Lines of texts from an unsaved number. Sentences dripping with intimacy, with familiarity, with love. Things she hadn't said to me in years. Last night I dreamt of you again. I hate sneaking around, but I'd do it forever if it means I get to feel you. When can we see each other? I can't wait. My stomach dropped, my vision blurred, and then I saw the one message that made my blood turn to ice. Say my name tonight. I want to know you think of me when you're with him. The world stopped. My knees almost buckled under the weight of it. That was the name I had heard. That was the whisper that sliced through the dark. And now, I knew it wasn't an accident. It was a choice. I sat there, holding that phone, my hands trembling. Every word I read felt like a knife twisting deeper. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't just temptation, it was love. Love she gave to someone else while lying next to me every night. And in that moment, something inside me broke. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I didn't even wake her up when she came home. I just went silent, because silence was louder than anything I could have said. The truth is, betrayal doesn't always come crashing down with a fight. Sometimes it comes quietly, in a whisper, in a name that isn't yours. And once you hear it, you can never unhear it. That night, lying beside her, I finally understood. I hadn't lost her in that moment. I had lost her long before. I just hadn't been brave enough to see it. And now, I had to decide whether to keep pretending or finally set myself free.